I didn't actually see if this is recording the right way. Hopefully it is. Otherwise it will not be good. So I was going to actually do intro with my bees. Is that cool?
Sure.
Okay. Did we have a different idea?
I don't remember.
This is everything else.
Sure. No, that's fine. Intro. Fine.
All right. Are you ready? Gotta have quiet.
I have a mustache.
5 seconds of quiet.
I know.
Why, hello.
Hey there.
I know you're resisting. Quiet, you birds. My wife needs 5 seconds of quiet.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking about. I wasn't thinking about making a really loud noise.
Oh, just to be antagonistic?
Because, yeah.
That's my move. I'm the one that antagonizes
You must be
people.
rubbing off on me or something.
It only took this long. 20 years or so since we started dating?
Oh, gosh. I think, yeah.
About?
Yeah, that's...
Is that crazy?
Okay. We're old. Sweet.
Right? So we're outside, so we get wonderful ambiance of motors and birds and wind.
Right.
And maybe random neighbors mowing the lawn. That hasn't happened so far this afternoon, but it's always a risk.
I think most of them have electric lawnmowers these days, so they're quiet enough.
No, I don't think that's the case. For sure they don't. They were out this morning.
I thought they had an electric one.
Nope. He was out this morning.
They have an electric one, although I don't know if they use it.
I don't know if it's an electric one. Is it?
Yes, he bought an electric.
Oh.
But I don't know if he uses it. He has
Okay.
a non-electric one, too.
Oh, cool. Well, it's a good thing, especially in our area. We are always out of compliance of air quality standards, near and dear to my heart. But the return of warm weather means it's easier to go in and do a hive inspection.
Yeah.
So I've been meaning to get into my hive since I was last in, and I did some spring cleaning in there. And I opened her up, and I start going from the back to the front because that's how you generally approach a hive inspection. And I start seeing so many fat, rotund, useless bodies. And by that, which type of bee am I speaking of?
Unfortunately, the males. Were they watching the 2 centimeter long screen in the back and had some potato chips?
They probably were.
Uh-huh.
It's so fun. I definitely had a sinking feeling when I got in there because I'm like, there's a lot of drones on this frame. This is weird. And then I go through and I just see so much drone comb that is capped over, which means it's about to burst forth hundreds of drones. And that is a sign that my hive is preparing to reproduce at the hive level, and that is called a swarm. And so, when you hear of a bee swarm, it sounds really bad, but technically speaking, it's when the hive carries away its active queen and leaves behind a bunch of babies as well as a bunch of capped queens, which will be virgin queens, of course, in the hopes that the hive that they have left behind will successfully produce a queen and then be a successful hive. But it's kind of a big gamble, and so you really ought not allow it to happen, especially in the middle of suburbia.
Well, I mean, if anything of 1970s television has taught us, when they swarm, everyone dies.
Right? And it's actually, they're the most docile that they will ever be when they're swarming. You can just pick them up in clusters, evidently. Not that I will, because I'm terrified of them. But I don't want that to happen, so I need to start checking on them every week at the very longest to see if there's any queen babies in the swarm cells that I spotted.
It's like summer's coming or something.
Yeah, and I have carny bees. I think it's carniolan is the name for them, but their short name is the carny bees.
You have carnies.
I have carnies. But they're prolific honey producers, and they're great overwinterers. But I guess the negative is that they are really quick to populate themselves, and therefore hit their swarming impulse quite fast. So I've never had an actual swarm. I've been prepared for years, right? Had that second hive ready to go.
Right. Yeah. We'll see if they like it this year.
Yeah.
If they, in fact, swarm.
Yes, I hope they won't. I hope to catch them before they do. I mean, I'd be cool splitting it, kind of facilitating a swarm, managing them through a swarm. Prefer it to be managed, not me have to go grab them out of a tree, or God forbid they go to our next door neighbor's house because our next door neighbor is terrified of bees.
Yeah.
Like he has a phobia,
You-
whatever bee phobia, and
you have
flying
a
insect.
You have a
phobia.
friend that could help you get them out of the tree if you needed to.
I do?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Not me.
That's what I was wondering.
Oh, no.
I think my other friend is recovering from COVID still. That helps me with bee things.
Well, yeah, but it's going to be a couple weeks before this happens. Should be fine. Should be ready.
You like text. Can't say
I
her
mean,
name.
I
But
still need to fix the top of her hood of her truck, so
be a good
it'll be a
little
trade-off,
contact.
right?
Yeah, help me capture my swarm
Yes.
that's halfway up a tree and
And in
return
return-
it to my other hive, and then deal will fix your truck.
Yep. It'll work.
Win-win for me. I don't have to do anything. I mean, I would go venture to catch the swarm.
I
would
think
do
you'd be
that.
helping.
Well, I'm Kit.
And I'm Dale.
Welcome to Catholic Hitch. We are a Catholic family seeking heaven and hoping to pick up others along the way.
Small talk. What do we do in small talk?
Talking about a double date that we got to
Oh,
have.
that's right. That's right. So we've been able to have some good times with some friends of ours, and we've been able to do a couple more things. They're our oldest son's. Yes, that is in fact a car loan.
That's just
Uh-huh.
going on and on.
So our oldest son's sponsor for confirmation. He and his wife we've been able to do a little bit more with lately, and it's been great. And we decided, you know what, we're adults and we should probably do this crazy thing that husbands and wives should do of going on dates.
Not only that, but our oldest is old enough and has been certified to watch children.
Yes,
So,
she is certifiable
she is certifiable, so
in
she can watch
watching children.
not only our children but others' children while we go out and ditch them on dates.
Yeah. So we didn't ditch them per se. I wouldn't say that, but I set them up so they had a DVD. They had
actually,
candy,
it was quite good.
and they had chips.
Yeah.
So they had a good time.
It was like a kid double date.
Yeah, it worked for them.
Yeah.
They were good to go. I was thinking, like, if I'm a kid and I have to have a Friday night, what would I want on my Friday night? Chips, candy, maybe some pop, and a good movie or video game. So I kind of pulled from that. And Rosie helped find the video that they watched, and I'm sure they had a good time. Nobody was injured in the exercise.
Yeah, no one was like strung out on the floor. Oh wait, that was Jonathan.
Oh, was he?
He was in a cat costume.
Oh, well, yeah. But
When we got home, I should say. So what did we
Yeah.
do? We went to the movies.
So we went to the movies, and we finally had the opportunity to watch Father Stew. And oh boy, those I will give it to the makers of trailers that they didn't screw this one up, because you did not. I mean, and we all knew the story of Father Stew because there's been so much hype of, okay, he's the real guy. What's his story? And you can go find it in The Pillar and EWTN, and all these others have talked about it. So we kind of knew everything that was gonna happen. But then,
And I mean, to be fair, the trailer kind of does give the gist
well,
of the plot.
typically it does. But
the high
this one didn't like ruin it for you, because there's a transformation that happens in this movie, and so it didn't. It was, even though I knew it was coming, I was surprised by it, and it was wonderful and beautiful.
Which, I guess, was it the first transformation or the second transformation that got you?
So if you don't know the story of Father Stew,
Spoilers, I guess.
I guess
I mean,
he's a real dude, and there's you can go read about him, and it won't spoil the movie for you. He was a very charismatic man in his younger life. He was a boxer, and he did not have any kind of real faith in his life, and he found himself in a situation where God kind of said, "Hey, come here." And I'm trying to be a little mysterious in this, but he found his way to the Catholic Church, and as his faith deepened and his relationship with Christ deepened, Father Stew apparently was a man that, like, when he did something, he did it. Just double down, get her done. And he felt the call to become a priest, and he doubled down on it. He took God at the calling that was given to him, and he went full force. And the transformation really happens. Not so much of the spiritual transformation, which is there. That's throughout his whole witness of his faith. It's more about his what happens to him physically. So he suffers tremendously to become, not to become a priest, but just in his life. He had a really bad accident on a motorcycle, and then he had a genetic disease similar to like a Lou Gehrig's, I think. It's one of those kinds.
ALS.
Yeah. It's a nervous degenerative disease. And
it wasn't ALS, but like similar vein. Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. And so knowing that this was going to happen to him, he had the easy out. He could have said, oh, well, I'm going to suffer with this and I won't become a priest. Instead, he gave everything to God and went into that moment and said, I am going to be a priest regardless of my ailments and infirmities. And it was a challenge. It was a hurdle because, there's a lot of logistics that go in with how do you have a newly ordained priest who we know has a limited time span that he can actually be a priest, and how do we service him so that he can do the ministry. And just the sheer will of what happened in his story and his ability to be able to overcome this and have people in his life that loved him so much that they helped him even through his ministry, of being a father and celebrating the Mass when his body said, no, I'm not going to work for you anymore. He couldn't hold up the paten and the chalice. He needed help for all of those things, but yet he had faithful brothers in Christ that helped him through all of these moments, all the way to the end of his life. It's such a beautiful thing to see. I mean, it's kind of similar to like Blessed Chiara Padana. I think I'm saying her name right. She was the young girl who found, I think she was going to have cancer, and she gave everything in the last part of her life to Christ. She became a bride of Christ. Everything was for Jesus.
Cool.
And it's such a compelling and beautiful thing to see that transformation. So that in itself is just, in his story, is so wonderful. But then to see how Mark Wahlberg, of all the actors in the world, actually does this transformation and follows it through. It was not an easy thing to do. And I think he did it brilliantly.
Yeah.
I hands down, I think it's probably the best role I've ever seen him in. And I'm not saying that because it's a Catholic movie, but I'm saying it because normally, you watch a Mark Wahlberg movie, you know what you're getting,
Indeed.
The Shooter, Transformers, any of those. There's like, he's been typecast, he's a big buff dude, and he's got like the Bostonian Eastern,
the School of Hard Knocks.
All of those kind of things.
That's Father Stu.
A little bit, in the early part, yes.
A little bit.
In the early part of it, there's a little bit of that tone, but he does it in a different way that, and that you see the transformation of that life into being a priest. And I think he just does an amazing job with it. I would imagine it's probably the toughest role he's ever done.
I don't know. I'd have to evaluate based on the roles he's done.
Sweet. Marathon.
No, that is not what
You
I'm
walked
saying.
straight into that one.
Well, all right. I'm going to put on my Catholic police glasses.
Sure.
Because even on the drive back, and we carpooled, which was cool, so we could all sort of break it down on the drive. So there's a scene where they're going through the confiteor in the movie.
Well, yes.
And I'm like, even when I was sitting in the theater, I'm like, that's the new version of the confiteor. I'm pretty sure that it changed, and it did.
Yes,
so
of
Catholic
course.
police, gotcha.
Yes, but I understand why.
Okay. I get it too. Other moment of Catholic police. You're about to be pulled over for inaccurately portraying a Catholic sacrament. There was a confessional scene where I'm like, that is not the 4 steps of confession.
But there are a couple of confessional scenes that are in the movie.
Yeah, but the others,
They're
were
snippets.
in the middle of a confession, I'd say, so you couldn't
Yeah.
determine. But like the one you could kind of determine and be like, no. And I get it. It's supposed to be like a movie. But yeah, I was
Well-
the Catholic police. It definitely took me out of the story for a sec where I'm like, that's not accurate. Wait, why is that not accurate? It's because this is a movie
Well-
portrayal, not an actual thing.
So I appreciated that a little bit because in that sense, it wasn't like they were trying to show that this is a confession in its pseudo-licit form that then someone would think, oh, they're actually, showing one of his confessions and they must have wrote it down and, this kind of a thing, like in his bibliography or something like that, or an autobiographical moment that he told of a confession that he did. It's grade enough that you
I know,
get the
but then don't
idea.
go through the entire process, just like the other confessional scenes. Like, cut it short or whatever. Don't have it conclude or whatever.
Okay.
So that's my two beefs.
Okay.
And we've probably talked about this a million years. But you want to keep talking about it
No.
forever.
No.
We've
I
watched
think-
other things we need to talk about now.
Yes. Let's go on to those.
Big talk. All right. So earlier in the week, you sent me by text an article to read.
Yes. So, call me old. I subscribe to the Epic Times, and an article came through that was talking about this family that is facing a traumatic moment in their lives where their daughter had gone to school and she had gone to an art class, art club, I should say, and came back and lo and behold, it wasn't an art club that she had gone to. And so
It was a safe space.
yeah, safe space meeting for understanding whether or not you are, pick your acronym these days of the gender war. And normally I wouldn't even care, because there's so many of those articles that come through. There's lots of it out there and we hear it in the news. But what got me was this one's in our backyard. So this was
Yeah.
up in Fort Collins, which is like 40 minutes away from us. And the reason that is an issue to me is because it's not like their school district is that different from any of the other school districts in this area. They're all kind of drinking the same Kool-Aids, So to see what this poor child had to go through and the family had to go through, I read the whole article, and normally I don't have the bandwidth to read a whole article. It took me 10, 15 minutes to read this. And then I sent it to you because I thought we need to talk about this. This is important, not only, not just it's a podcast topic, but it's pertinent to our lives in that this is a dangerous and many ways diabolical thing that is happening, and it's in our backyard, and we need to be on the ready.
Yeah, so I always look for bias whenever you send me anything from that particular news source, just like any particular news source.
It is
you kinda,
biased.
sniff for bias.
Yep.
I thought it was well covered. We might try to actually share the link in the show notes,
Yeah.
just for folks to read. But the thing that really disturbed me was the Epic Times was able to do a open records request of the school district communication records, and it had been bandied about by school district officials, principals, teachers, and then, this person that leads these safe space groups. The word child abuse had been thrown about, and whether they ought to report this family to Child Protective Services for a home visit. And that was really very disturbing. And it didn't actually happen in this case, but it had been communicated about and kind of thoughtfully analyzed. So I started to look up, what is the definition of child abuse? And it is rather vague at the federal level. And I wasn't able to actually find it at the state level of, what defines child abuse. And so, I'm going through this morning, and I'm like, oh, there has to be, something that's concrete. What is child abuse? And then, I'm going down this rabbit hole, and you're like, we should watch this movie in a ninja way.
It's been on my to-do list to have you watch this movie
And
for a
so
while.
really the theme of probably this podcast is the devil is a registered Marxist, and the devil is a registered sex offender against minors.
Yeah.
Child abuser. And so we sat down and watched in a couple of installments a video today. And I'd say, like, you definitely kept kind of apologizing for the nature of the video.
Well, so it's an EWTN production. And the target market of this production is a little bit older than us, I would say. And they were trying to be cool and hip to get the young kids, you know, like our age, to watch this thing. So there were just lots of rapid cut scenes and zooming in and out. And
I'd say I'm always, like, riled up or... Yeah, I don't know. Riled up is probably off-put, maybe, is like a gentler way of stating it. When any kind of a production starts incorporating, like, really nice graphics and a musical overlay in order to manipulate an emotional response.
Sure.
And that was happening. And it happens, I think, even on a lot of, like, Formed Augustine Institute productions where I'm like, ugh, can't we just, like, get to the facts?
Right, but all of them do that. I mean, 60 Minutes and
but it's not to apologize for it. I will still be critical of all of them.
Yeah.
But, you know, what's disturbing about them overly relying on that, like, level of emotional manipulation is it can lead to the possibility of you discrediting some of the information and kind of finding it manipulative. And before we, like, talk about the main kind of walk away disturbing, like, highly disturbing thing, to me, that was really new for me, and I want to talk about that. I wanted to go through the fallacies that are present in this particular production. So the production is called Wolf in Sheep's Clothing, Part 2.
Yes. So I got this in the mail, I think through a promotional to, hey, let's help support EWTN, or I think I got it through our Catholic radio because we had donated or something like that as a free gift kind of deal. So that's how this got to us. And then when you were at a woman's group in the evening, I'm like, oh, I'll just pop this in and watch it. And I went, holy cow, this is pretty wild. And it's just, you know, taking me like 3 or 4 months to get to watch it.
I know,
but it's
well
pertinent.
played.
It's pertinent to this issue.
But before I get to, like, the clincher, which is, like, kind of the gasp of this whole thing, the fallacies that it actually includes is false dilemma fallacy, which is presuming, like, an either-or relationship, which is it's literally diabolical to always presume either or, and that kind of starts to allow someone to discredit it. It has hasty generalization fallacy, where it's drawing conclusion based on, like, incomplete evidence. And I would say that it was trying to draw connections that don't necessarily exist. And it was also drawing connections between people and other people that are just kind of nefarious characters, like Hugh Hefner?
Yeah,
the Playboy guy.
Well,
he was thrown in there just, you know, as a character reference.
Well, yes, and that's because he frequented with one of the vile people.
But that doesn't matter. That does not matter in building an argument. Who you associate with is in trying to discredit someone based on who they have in their circle. That's a logical fallacy. You cannot discredit what they say based on who they associate with. So I'd say they leaned a little bit too heavily on that stuff.
Okay, so that's like saying, you know, you can't say Jesus was a bad dude because he hung out with tax collectors and sinners.
Exactly.
Okay.
And same with, like, a lot of people who do important ministries in the church. So it also smelled of Texas sharpshooter fallacy and anecdotal evidence fallacy. These are the literal names of these fallacies.
I know.
So look it up. Everyone can educate themselves. And the thing is that, you know, despite all of these fallacies that are in it, you cannot make the fallacy. Literally.
That's a thing.
Which means that you discredit the information in this simply due to the fact that there are fallacies present in the argument that it presents.
You mean, in other words, for us who aren't English majors, that this is something that has facts in it?
Yes. So the problem I have with it having all of these fallacies and drawing kind of like sketchy connections is that people will use that to discredit the entire project.
Yes.
And so I have this kind of like a devil's advocate inside of me that I want to kind of be critical of, you know, things that I want to see succeed because I want to, like, make sure that we patch any vulnerabilities. Right. So I'm pointing this out because anyone that were to sit down and watch this, and I would not recommend it, you might be struck by some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd say it's worth watching in a way, but we'll probably just spill the guts of this thing right now anyway. So the big gasper for me, and this is I think why you recommended we watch this, was I had never heard of a gentleman named Alfred Kinsey.
Yes.
And there is a Kinsey Institute out of Indiana
University.
And this Kinsey Institute is in existence
Full
to this
force.
day.
Still
and
moving.
It's still promoting him. And that is intrinsically so disturbing to me.
Well,
because of what this man did.
So go ahead and tell people what this man did.
Do you want to say, because I've been talking a lot?
Oh, I can.
Yeah, why don't you say? Because it's...
Well, so...
Oh my gosh.
So the movie talks a lot about what has happened in our culture since, early, I'd say pre-1900s, all the way through communism up to today. And it covers a lot of ground, but I'd say the thing that points the most is this, I wouldn't even call him a gentleman. He had a lot of issues. A sociopath, that might be kind for this
definitely
person.
A sociopath, because he did not see any kind of norms
right.
as applying to him, and he actually went about a project of trying to start destroying cultural norms that he did not believe
right.
pertained
So
to him.
He was a pedophile. He was a sociopath. All of these kind of wonderful, horrible things. And he did all this under the auspice of education. He was a professor.
He was a scientist. He was a biologist.
Yeah. So
that's what it says on the Kinsey Institute.
He used the guise of science, which was something new at the time. It wasn't people still had reason and logic back in the 40s, I think, comparatively today, where reason just has gone out the window. And what he did is he used his office, his station, to create and get funding through the Rockefeller Institute to prove that there is a science of sex. And so he goes out and he literally performs diabolical acts in the name of science, which actually wasn't founded in science. The statistics were completely wrong. He did all of these things to try to prove that he was right and the rest of the world was wrong, in that it is totally okay to be a deviant. If you want to go and have a sexual act with a baby, totally okay.
Yeah.
You want to do it with a dog? Totally okay. That's where this guy went. And he published all this, and it was a bestseller in our country.
Yeah, and it's been pulled apart statistically for basically stating conclusions that you cannot even draw from the evidence in his own publication. And there's strong evidence that he was literally throwing any conflicting data out the window. So he recruited 300 individuals from this small university to participate in these quote-unquote experiments. And they included, of course, people having to, talk about their own sexual escapades.
Right.
And he tended to
favor... the definition of marriage, for instance, was a great little piece there. So he defined a woman as married when she had lived with a man for at least a year, therefore was married. That's not the definition of marriage, especially in the 1940s.
Yeah.
That was a person who shouldn't have been doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
But yet that was what he qualified and classified as
a
married
that's
woman.
That's not the worst.
No.
I mean, he was basically kind of I'd like to say that all of the neo-Marxism of our time has called attention to disparities in power, and that therefore people in our time could look back on what he did as intrinsically abusing his power in order to coerce kind of these erotic details from people, which is literally perverted. But not only was he asking people to self-report their own sexual escapades, he recruited parents and grandparents to return to their homes and to sexually molest their own children and nieces and nephews.
Paid them for it.
He paid them for it, like a significant sums of money. And then he published a table in his book talking about how these children of all ages could achieve orgasms.
Yeah, as they were being abused.
But what he was defining as an orgasm was like struggling against their partner. Was
Yes.
like defined as an orgasm.
Yeah, it was all horrible things.
Just unbelievable.
And he's still fully funded. This
institute holds his
yeah.
name, and they don't apologize for him at all.
So if
and
you
at
have any
least
kids-
Planned Parenthood has started to be ashamed of Margaret Sanger. And all she was, not that this is good, but she was a eugenicist and a racist. Bad things. And shame on Planned Parenthood, obviously, for many things, but certainly for being founded by such a woman. But this dude is a pedophile. He abused his
Right.
power in order to coerce all these situations. How can this institute still hold his name and not even apologize for him?
Well, it's diabolical. The devil is in
And
all
he's a
of
man.
this, and it is funded at the highest levels here. I mean, we're talking the Rockefeller Foundation.
Well, back in the day, I doubt they still fund him, but
No,
I mean,
well,
he's getting enough
we don't know
funding.
that. But in the time period that they were doing, they were one of the top philanthropic groups that was out there, and they're helping publish all of his works. They're pushing all of these things. They're doing a lot at this time period. And I know they try to draw conclusions across these groups, but so you had guys like him. You had Madame Dubois and Jean Paul Sartre, Mary Lou Ponty. They also talked about Hegel, which is one. These are all big philosophical contemporaries that any liberal school you go to, they are the ones you learn about immediately. This is the things that they're telling you and talking to you about, and they are all communists. Every one of them was either a socialist or a communist.
Well,
they were
and
in the
it's
circle
Marxist,
together.
I would say,
Marxist,
now.
all the same thing in my
Yeah.
brain. They were doing things that were counter to the natural order that we believe as Catholics. Unless you disagree with that, I think that's a
No.
fair statement.
But it goes back to the, again, like Marxism and the power play of the powerful and the powerless, and the only way for the powerless to seize power is to revolt. So everything was kind of prefaced on that
Yes.
idea, and that continues till this day. And actually, one of the problems of the movie that we just watched is it kept on saying they. Like, they are doing this, they are doing that. And it wasn't when they were speaking specifically about, like, the individuals like Alfred Kinsey. It was just this kind of amorphous they. And they didn't define who they, like, would be in our society, which kind of leaves me scratching my head a little bit. Because we like to blame, which is not, I think, a good quality of humans. Like, we can't find someone maybe to blame for this. And that leads me to the ultimate conclusion that is chilling to me personally, that the they that is doing this is actually the culture that we live in, and therefore it is not stoppable. And you've kind of, I think after you watched this movie, you were like, by the way, pedophilia and child molestation, it's like only a step away. And I'm like, impossible. In the neo-Marxist lens, that would be, we will always defend children because they're the powerless. That's against the very tenets of Marxism. And when we concluded the movie today, I did turn to you and I said, I take back my disagreement. I think you're probably right, and I don't know what to do. Because child abuse is a parent withdrawing their child from school and trying to help their child in their confusion
Right.
about being transgender
Well,
or not.
so I think-
and then child abuse is not pedophilia.
Yeah, so to kind of pull this full circle back to where this whole conversation started about this article on the Epic Times. So the all of these individuals that are in this documentary, they're foundational fathers, philosophers, thinkers that have led to the idea of taking away the intrinsic nature of who we are in God's image and creation, that he purposely creates us in the way that he creates us and who we are, and taking that away and saying that you can create your own self, that God has no play. He does not exist. And the only thing that happens is that you are created, and the culture creates you and gives you your essence, is what they call it. So Sartre's line about existence precedes essence, which is a fallacy. It's the other way around. That essence is preceded before existence, because we were all created by God, and our true essence, our soul, and then we exist as humans in this world, but our essence remains, because it's intrinsic to
having a body,
and being who we are, which is created by God. And so he flips this around so that he can prove that we are God's, small g, and that in itself is kind of what leads all of this up to where we are in this insane world today, with a poor little girl who goes to her high school and hears about a class, and it's an art class, and she goes to the art class or the art club and finds out that no, it's actually a safe space. So I'll read a little snippet from this just because I think it'll help to understand. So it says the art club was actually a meeting of the school's Gender and Sexualities Alliance, the GSA Club, a club dedicated to supporting homosexuality, transgenderism, and the non-traditional ideas about gender and sexuality. When the leader told Amanda, and her name was changed, she must be queer if she didn't feel sexually attracted to anybody, and that she must be transgender if she didn't feel fully comfortable in her own body, the shy little girl suspected something wasn't right. So in probably an hour of time, they tried to indoctrinate her into this belief, strip away whatever small defenses she probably had from her home life, because her parents, I believe, were supportive of this whole movement. They weren't
the mom
against
always,
it.
She kind of was a self-declared like progressive voter, always like an ally to the like LGBTQIA plus, I think is what it is now. Yeah, get it right, Kit. But this isn't what I wanted to. I didn't want to go down the transgender rabbit hole. I did want to focus on the child abuse point of that.
It points to the fact that they're doing this, and then they're taking away our ability as parents to protect our children and calling it child abuse.
Yeah.
How dare we say
disturbing.
That they have an essence and the right to be a woman or a man as God created them. That's not allowed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, so I was going to end with, so what is child abuse anyways? And do we have to go with like the definition, the Supreme Court's definition of pornography when we talk about child abuse? That I don't know how to define it, but I know it when I see it. Is that really where we're going
with
this?
I forgot about that.
Because like it should be rather simple, but based on a lot of the research that I did this morning, it's vague enough to be a little terrifying when you start thinking about this school district was contemplating calling child protective services on this family because they withdrew her, the daughter from school immediately.
Yeah, the moment they found this was going out and they noticed what was happening with their daughter, they were out.
Yeah, which is great for them.
Yeah.
But
it's the safest thing they could do for their child.
That tiny little bit of time, in the article, if you read it, it's interesting. Again, I think that it does make you really want to be wary as a parent about protecting our children and the many dimensions that we have to actually care for them in this society that we're in.
Well, I definitely say it's the hindsight 2020. Had these parents not taken action immediately, that something was wrong, and then found, their daughter told what was going on and that she was having doubts about her own sexuality and all of these things. If they had not pulled her out of that school district, they would have lost their child.
Yeah.
In this situation.
Oh, yeah.
Because the school was already gearing up, and this family, they went, it wasn't like they just said, oh, well, that's a bad school and we're going to put them in another public school. They talked to the groups that were doing this. They talked to the superintendent, the principal, the school board, all of them, and they all said the same thing, that, well, you're in the wrong, parent.
Yeah.
How dare you say that your child is what they are? That is their choice. You know, a 14-year-old who really understands themselves, because we all did. We all knew that we were exactly who we are when we were 14, right?
I know, right? It's crazy that adults are. I mean, this is just all playing into some kind of a crazy diabolical playbook, but
I believe
it's the perfect time to victimize children and to groom them.
Right.
In a mindset is in school, when their systems are literally being pumped full of hormonal software that is making their bodies go crazy because they're in a state of transition from one thing to another.
Right. Yeah.
They're in a liminal event.
They are. They totally are. And I mean, you see a lot of these kids that start this process because they're allowed to, and then give it like 5-10 years, or not 10 years, but like 5 years later, and then they're like, oh, I made the wrong decision, and they're detransitioning after that point. But the damage is already done.
Yeah, because you're doing it in a certain stage of your life when your body is facilitating hormonal changes.
Yeah.
And that's why they want to, quote unquote, catch children, but it's just such a diabolical act to, I don't know, it's taking away the natural process that a child goes through that is a little confusing, and that we have families in order to support children through. It is a point of destruction of the family.
Yeah,
which obviously is, you know, the assumed end of a lot of these things.
Yeah, that the state should care and take care of the child and not the parents.
Yeah, and
which is a Marxist idea.
When we were watching this movie, documentary thing, like many points, I'm like, that's literally Brave New World. Brave New World, Brave New World. So if you haven't read Brave New World, you need to read it, because of all of the dystopic pieces of fiction that exist that, you know, we kind of comment, oh, that's a Fahrenheit 451 thing with the flattening of TVs and the ever-largening of TVs.
Wall TVs.
You know, I think of all of those dystopias, Brave New World is what's coming for us. And you can see, like, the fingerprints of that template in our world today, and it's terrifying.
I think it's a Molotov cocktail of Brave New World in 1984 that's happening right now.
Yeah, it's like, 1984?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, because they're changing language.
They're changing language.
Yeah, that was the big, 1984 thing. Like, it prefaced the idea that our language actually conforms our brains, and so if they are able to take away, like, vocabulary, that they can disempower people.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what's happening, because you can't use half the words that we used when we were kids, and I'm sure our parents feel the same way, that words that were used in their generation have totally different meanings.
Well, yeah,
now.
it's the slippery slope of the changing of meanings, and that's always kind of been a part of, like, a living language. However, I think that there's been some intentional distortion at play with these particular issues to, like, cultivate and force you to assume that there's always been buy-in on a certain definition, when actually the definition has changed for a word.
Which is what has and is still occurring in places like Vietnam, or not Vietnam, Korea, North Korea, and China, in many places, where words change because they don't have that same meaning, or they take away, like when a regime comes through, they wipe all the information out about that regime because only the new regime, and look how good the new regime is, and here's all the history of that regime that doesn't exist, but they make it truth.
Yeah.
It's happening in our world. So, not to be a downer on a Sunday. But
beautiful day.
Yeah, this article came through, and we just thought we would share, because, you know, it's not like it's just us in our neighborhood that we're seeing this happening. It's happening across our country, and we all have to be prepared, especially as parents, to face these difficulties before our children have to face them on their own and then get caught in a system. I mean, it used to be, like 10 years ago, if you spanked your child in public, oh, you're a horrible parent, and we're going to take your kid off to child custody now. That's not even the case now. If you, like, tell your child the truth about gender reality, then they're going to take your children away. So it's just, the degree has gone up. I mean, we're not even at 11. We're like at 15 now on the volume scale. It's just insanity.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, look it up. check out Alfred Kinsey, the pervert that is still the named founder of a ridiculous institute that actually people pay attention to.
Yep, for sure. And then we'll put this other article in the show notes just because I think it's pertinent. People should have it. Not saying that you should subscribe to the Epic Times. You should be able to see it.
Subscribe to the Pillar.
Yes, subscribe to the Pillar.
Instead.
That's way better. But you should be able to see this article for free without necessarily having to sign up.
I didn't have to sign in, and I for sure have never logged into.
They let you have like 8 viewings a month or something like that.
So if you're like a closet junkie of the Epic Times and haven't subscribed, then maybe you'll hit the paywall. maybe. You have to be a closet junkie though.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you can find this EWTN documentary, if it's on their website. Who knows?
I mean, if you're super bored, just prepare for like horrible fallacies. But there's some great information inside of that. There's nuggets. And on that note, while we have neighbors sawing things, I think we can sign off.
Yeah. So may the Lord guide and direct our journey.
Amen. Jeez Louise, every random thing a neighbor could possibly do right now.
Almost. We don't have a barbecue going. Because normally those neighbors would have the barbecue and the Spanish music would be playing really loud and Buzz would be buzzing and we'd have a lawnmower going.
Yep, and dogs.
So, not bad. Nice spring day.